Multimillionaire shocked to see three boys who looked just like him begging for money. David Thompson was just returning from another business meeting when his life changed forever. The 42-year-old businessman, owner of one of the largest construction companies in New York City, was walking down Fifth Avenue when something made him stop abruptly in the middle of the busy sidewalk. There, sitting on the corner with small metal bowls in their hands, were three boys who looked about 12 years old. But it wasn't just the fact that they were begging that shocked him. It was as if he was looking at three versions of himself as a child. The same brown eyes, the same facial features, the same way of tilting their heads. The resemblance was so striking that some passers-by stopped to glance back and forth between him and the boys. David felt his legs tremble. 20 years ago, when he was still a college student drowning in debt, he had made a decision he thought would never affect his life again. To earn money and finish his engineering degree, he had donated sperm at a fertility clinic. It was supposed to be anonymous with no future consequences, but now, faced with those three faces that were like mirrors of his past, reality hit him like a punch to the gut. The boy in the middle noticed him staring and whispered something to his brothers. All three looked up at the same time, and David saw a mix of curiosity and shyness in their eyes. The businessman swallowed hard, trying to process what was happening. His hands began to sweat inside the pockets of his Italian suit, which cost more than those children probably saw in an entire year. "Good afternoon, sir," said the boy on the left in a polite voice, despite his worn-out clothes. David tried to respond, but the words wouldn't come. He looked around as if expecting someone to explain what was happening. Pedestrians kept rushing by, some tossing coins into the boys' bowls, but no one else seemed to notice the uncanny resemblance. "Are you okay, sir?" asked the boy in the middle, tilting his head exactly the way David did when he was worried. That was when the businessman realized he needed to leave. The shock was too much to process on the street, surrounded by so many people. With trembling hands, he pulled out his wallet and placed several bills into the boys' bowls, far more money than they probably received in an entire week. "Thank you, sir," the three said in unison, their smiles identical to the one David saw in the mirror every morning. Unable to speak, he quickly walked away, his heart pounding unevenly. The whole way to his car, a black Lexus parked 2 blocks away, he couldn't get those faces out of his mind. When he finally got inside, David rested his forehead on the steering wheel and tried to take a deep breath. 20 years ago, he had just been David Miller, a poor young man from rural Pennsylvania who had earned a scholarship to study engineering in New York City. The scholarship barely covered tuition, and he worked 3 different jobs just to pay rent for a tiny room and buy food. It was a college classmate who told him about the fertility clinic that paid well for sperm donations. At the time, it seemed like the perfect solution. He was young, healthy, had good grades, and, according to the clinic, a desirable genetic profile. The process was simple and anonymous. He would sign some papers, take a few tests, and receive enough money to pay off his debts and graduate. He would never know if his donations were used, and any potential children would never know who he was. Now, 2 decades later, David was the owner of Thompson Construction, a company worth millions. He lived in a mansion on the Upper East Side, was married to Jennifer, a successful lawyer, and had a life he never could have imagined possible when he was that desperate young man in need of money. But all of that seemed insignificant compared to what he had just witnessed. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us who are just starting out. Now, back to the story. Driving through the streets of New York City, David couldn't focus on the traffic. His mind kept drifting back to those 3 identical boys. He tried to convince himself it was just a coincidence, that children sometimes resembled random adults. But deep in his heart, he knew that resemblance couldn't possibly be accidental. When he got home, Jennifer was already in the kitchen preparing dinner. She worked at a law firm downtown and always arrived before him. At 38, Jennifer was an elegant and determined woman, with perfectly styled blonde hair and a smile that had won David over from their very first meeting 5 years earlier. "How was your day, love?" she asked, without looking up from the pan where she was sautéing vegetables. David stood in the kitchen doorway, watching the woman he loved. They were happy together, living a comfortable life with a solid relationship. The only painful point in their marriage was Jennifer's inability to get pregnant. After 2 years of trying and numerous medical tests, they discovered she had issues that made natural pregnancy nearly impossible. They had discussed IVF and adoption, but hadn't made any final decisions yet. It was normal, David lied, loosening his tie. He didn't know how to tell his wife what had happened. In fact, he wasn't even sure if he should. Jennifer noticed something different in his tone and turned to look at him. "Are you sure? You seem upset." "Just tired," he said, forcing a smile. "I'll take a shower before dinner." Throughout his shower, David couldn't stop thinking about the boys. Where did they live? Who were they with? Why were they begging on the street? And the question that tormented him the most, were they really his biological sons? At dinner, Jennifer tried to keep the conversation going, talking about a complicated case she was working on, but David barely responded. His mind was completely occupied by the day's events. "David, what's going on?" Jennifer asked, setting her fork down. "You haven't heard a word I've said." He looked up, realizing he'd been caught not paying attention. "Sorry, love. I'm just worried about some business at the company." Jennifer knew him too well to believe such a simple excuse. "What kind of problem? Can I help with anything?" "It's nothing you can fix," he said, trying to drop the subject. But Jennifer wasn't the type to give up easily. She had built a successful career precisely because she was persistent and observant. "David, in 5 years of marriage, you've never come home looking like this. Did something happen today that you're not telling me?" He sighed, knowing he wouldn't be able to keep it from her for long. But how could he explain something he didn't fully understand himself? "I saw some kids today, on the street. They caught my attention because they seemed to be in a tough situation." It wasn't a lie, just not the whole truth. "And that affected you this much?" Jennifer asked, her expression softening. "David, you've always been sensitive to these things. Remember when you saw that homeless family downtown and couldn't stop thinking about them for days?" It was true. David had never forgotten his humble beginnings and was always moved by people in vulnerable situations. That was part of what Jennifer loved about him, his ability to genuinely care for others. "It's something like that," he said, relieved to have found an explanation that wasn't entirely false. Jennifer reached across the table and took his hand. "If you want to do something to help those children, you know you have my full support. We can look for an organization or see if they need any specific assistance." His wife's generosity made David's heart ache even more. How could he tell her those children might be his biological sons? How could he explain the sperm donations he'd made before even meeting her? That night, David barely slept. He lay beside Jennifer, listening to her steady breathing, while his mind raced with questions and possibilities. When he finally drifted off, his dreams were filled with images of those 3 familiar faces. The next morning, David woke with a decision. He needed to know more about those boys. He couldn't live in peace without uncovering the truth. At breakfast, he told Jennifer he might be late from work. "I'm going to do some research about those children I saw yesterday," he said. "What kind of research?" Jennifer asked, sipping her coffee. "I want to understand their situation better. Maybe talk to them, see if I can help in some way." Jennifer smiled, that proud smile she always had when he showed his compassionate side. "You're a good man, David Thompson. That's why I fell in love with you." If she knew the real reasons behind his concern, David thought, she might not smile like that. All morning at the office, David struggled to focus on meetings and reports. His secretary, Mrs. Dorothy, a 60-year-old woman who had worked with him since he started the company, noticed he wasn't himself. "Mr. David, are you all right? You seem worried about something." Mrs. Dorothy was more than an employee to David. She had been like a mother to him in the early, difficult years of the business, when he was still building his reputation and fighting for contracts. She knew him well and could tell when something was bothering him. "I'm fine, Mrs. Dorothy. Just some personal things on my mind." "You know you can talk to me if you need to, right? Sometimes an older person can offer a different perspective." David smiled fondly. Mrs. Dorothy truly treated him like a son, and he had immense respect for her. "Thank you. If I need to talk, You'll be the first person I come to." At lunch, instead of going to the executive restaurant where he usually ate, David drove straight to Fifth Avenue. His heart pounded as he neared the corner where he'd seen the boys the day before. They were there again, in the same spots, with the same metal bowls. This time, David mentally prepared himself before approaching. He watched them from a distance for a few minutes, trying to pick up more details. They wore simple but clean clothes and seemed polite in how they thanked people who gave them money. They didn't appear to be under the influence of drugs or alcohol, as was sadly common with many street children. Finally, he gathered his courage and walked over. "Good afternoon," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. The three boys looked up simultaneously, and again David felt that shock of recognition. Up close, the resemblance was even more striking. It wasn't just the shape of their faces, but small details. A tiny birthmark on the left forehead that one of them had, exactly where David had his, the way another fidgeted with his hair when nervous, how the third bit his lower lip when deep in thought. "Good afternoon, sir," they answered in unison. "What are your names?" asked David, crouching to their level. "I'm Ethan," said the boy on the left. "I'm Michael," said the one in the middle. "And I'm Christopher," finished the boy on the right. Ethan, Michael, and Christopher. 3 simple American names. David noticed they spoke with a slight rural accent, similar to the one he'd had as a boy. "Are you brothers?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "We're triplets," Michael explained, "born on the same day, at the same time." "And where do you live?" The boys exchanged quick glances, as if deciding how much to share with this well-dressed stranger. "We live with our grandmother," Ethan finally said, "in a small house near the station." "And your parents?" This time, Christopher answered with a sadness in his eyes that made David's heart clench. "Our mother passed when we were little. We don't know our father." The answer struck David like lightning. They didn't know their father. That made sense, considering sperm donations were anonymous, but the news about their mother left him both curious and concerned. "Why are you here asking for help?" he asked gently. "Our grandmother is sick," Michael explained. "She can't work much, and the medicine is expensive. We come here after school to earn a little money." "You go to school?" "Yes, sir," Ethan said proudly. "Our grandmother always says education is the most important thing. Even when there's no money for other things, she makes sure we go to school." David felt a mix of relief and admiration. At least the children were being well cared for and had strong values, even in difficult circumstances. "What kind of illness does your grandmother have?" he asked. "The doctor said it's diabetes," Christopher explained. "She needs medicine every day and a special diet, but sometimes there's no money for the medicine." Diabetes was a serious condition that, if untreated, could lead to severe complications. David's chest tightened at the thought of an elderly woman trying to raise 3 grandsons while battling an illness requiring constant care. "Would you like to have lunch with me?" he asked impulsively. "I know a good place nearby." The boys exchanged glances again, clearly surprised by the invitation. "I don't know if Grandma would like that," Michael said hesitantly. "She always tells us not to take things from strangers." "Your grandmother is very wise," David agreed. "What if I meet her first? Could you take me to your house?" Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. Ethan, Michael, and Christopher looked at each other uncertainly. David realized he'd been too direct and tried to ease the tension. "You don't have to decide now," he said. "How about you ask your grandmother first? I can come back tomorrow and you can give me an answer." "Why do you want to help us?" Christopher asked with surprising maturity for his age. "We're nothing to you." The innocent question hit David deeply. How could he explain to these boys that he thought they might mean everything to him? "Sometimes people help each other just because it's the right thing to do," he replied. "I've been through hard times too, and I know how much it means when someone lends a hand." "Were you ever poor?" asked Ethan, looking at David's expensive suit with curiosity. "Yes, already. When I was your age, my family had very little money. I know what it's like to have to choose between buying food or medicine." The boys seemed to relate to that answer. Michael nodded. Sometimes Grandma cries when she thinks we're not looking. She worries a lot about money. Is that why you come here every day? Not every day, corrected Christopher. Only when things get really tough. Grandma doesn't like us asking for money on the street, but sometimes there's no other way. David took out his wallet and placed some bills in the boys' bowls, just as he had done the day before. Buy something nice for yourselves and take the rest to your grandmother, he said. Thank you so much, sir, the three said together. What's your name? Asked Michael. David hesitated for a moment. Giving his real name could complicate things, especially if the boys or their grandmother decided to look him up online. On the other hand, he didn't want to start a possible relationship based on lies. David, he finally said. My name is David. Thank you, Mr. David, said Ethan. Just David is fine, he corrected with a smile. On his way back to the office, David couldn't stop thinking about the conversation with the boys. They were polite, smart, and clearly loved by their grandmother, even though they lived in difficult conditions. The way they talked about their studies and the importance of doing the right thing showed they were being raised with strong values. When he arrived at the office, Mrs. Dorothy immediately noticed he seemed different. You look better, she observed. Did you resolve that personal matter? Not yet, but at least I'm understanding the situation better, said David. That afternoon, he struggled to focus on work. His mind kept going back to the boys and all the implications of what he was discovering. If they really were his biological children, it would change his entire life. He would have a moral responsibility toward them, even if he had no legal obligation. But there was also the matter of Jennifer. How would she react if she found out he had 3 biological children living in hardship? She had always been a generous and understanding person, but this would test any relationship. When he got home that night, Jennifer was in the living room reading some legal documents. How was the meeting with the children? She asked, looking up from the papers. It was eye-opening, said David, sitting beside her on the couch. They're triplets living with their grandmother. Their situation is really tough. Triplets? Jennifer repeated in surprise. Wow, it must be hard for their grandmother to take care of 3 children alone. It is, and she also has health problems that make everything harder. Jennifer set the documents aside and turned fully to face her husband. David, I can see in your eyes that this has affected you deeply. What are you thinking of doing? He sighed, knowing he needed to choose his words carefully. I'd like to help them somehow. Maybe pay for their grandmother's medicine or cover some basic expenses. That's very generous of you, said Jennifer, taking his hand. But have you thought about the practical details? This kind of help could create dependency or set expectations you might not be able to sustain long term. Jennifer was being practical, as always. It was one of the qualities David admired most about her, but right now, he needed emotional support, not a rational analysis of the situation. I know it's complicated, he said, but I can't just ignore their situation. And I'm not asking you to ignore it, Jennifer said gently. I just think we should carefully consider how to handle this in the most efficient and responsible way possible. Maybe we can look for an organization that already works with families in this situation. Jennifer's suggestion made logical sense, but David knew his motivation for helping those boys went far beyond simple charity. If they were truly his biological sons, he couldn't just delegate the responsibility to an institution. I'll think about it, he said, knowing he needed more time to understand the situation before making any major decisions. That night, after Jennifer fell asleep, David stayed awake browsing the internet. He researched the fertility clinic, where he had donated sperm 20 years earlier, and found that it still existed, though it had changed names and owners several times over the years. He also looked into the rights and responsibilities of sperm donors in the US. He discovered that the laws had changed significantly since his donations, and that there were now more protections for both donors and the resulting families. Most importantly, he learned that in specific cases it was possible to break the anonymity of donations, especially when medical issues were involved or if all parties agreed. This made him think there might be a legal way to find out if the boys were really his sons. The next morning, David woke up with renewed determination. He needed to know the truth, no matter how complicated it might be. Over breakfast, He told Jennifer he might need to leave the office for a few hours that afternoon. "I'm going to keep looking into those kids' situation," he explained. "Looking into?" Jennifer repeated, raising an eyebrow. "David, you're talking like it's a police case." He realized he'd chosen his words poorly. "It's nothing like that. I just want to understand their circumstances better before deciding how to help." Jennifer studied him for a moment, as if trying to read between the lines. "All right," she said finally. "But promise me you'll be careful. Sometimes, when we try to help people we don't know well, we end up in complicated situations." "I promise I'll be careful," David said, kissing his wife's forehead. At the office that morning, David tried to focus on work, but his mind was completely occupied by the events of the past few days. He was reviewing an important contract when his phone rang. It was Dr. Richard Wilson, his personal lawyer. "David, good morning. Do you have time to discuss something personal?" "Of course, Dr. Richard. What's going on?" "Actually, I wanted to ask you a question. It's a delicate matter, so I thought it best to call directly." A chill ran through David's stomach, wondering if news about the boys had somehow reached his lawyer. "Go ahead." "Yesterday, I got a call from a private investigator asking questions about you. He wanted to know about your assets, your financial situation, that kind of thing." David's heart raced. "A private investigator? Who hired them?" He wouldn't reveal the client's name, but based on the questions he asked, it seems someone is looking into your personal and financial life. "I thought you should know." David tried to think of who might be investigating him. His first concern was his company's competitors, who sometimes dug for information to use against him in bids. But there was also the unsettling possibility that someone had discovered his connection to the boys. "Dr. Richard, could you try to find out who hired this investigator?" "I can try, but it might be difficult. They're usually very discreet about their clients." "David, do you have any idea who might be interested in looking into your life?" "No clue," David lied. "But thanks for the heads up. I'll keep an eye out." After hanging up, David grew even more anxious. If someone was investigating his life, it could seriously complicate the situation with the boys. He needed to act fast to get a better grasp of what was happening. At lunchtime, he drove back to Fifth Avenue. The boys were at their usual spot, but this time David noticed they seemed more agitated than in previous days. "Hi, David," Ethan said when he saw him approaching. "Hey guys, how are you doing?" "Grandma said we can take you to meet her," Michael announced excitedly, "if you still want to." David's heart raced. Finally, he'd have the chance to meet the person taking care of these boys, and maybe get some answers to his questions. "Of course I do," he said. "When would you like to go?" "Now?" Christopher suggested. "Grandma's at home resting." David checked his watch. It was almost 2 in the afternoon, and he'd cancelled his afternoon appointments just for this opportunity. "Let's go then," he said. The boys packed their bowls into a plastic bag and started walking down the avenue. David followed, watching as they moved through the city with ease, greeting street vendors and others who seemed to know them. After about 15 minutes, they reached a working-class neighborhood near a train station. The houses were modest but well kept, with a strong sense of community in the air. Kids played in the street, neighbors chatted on sidewalks, and small local businesses brought life to the area. "This is it," Ethan said, stopping in front of a small house with a front porch. The house was simple but tidy. Potted plants sat on the porch, and the windows had clean curtains. David could tell that despite financial struggles, whoever lived here took pride in keeping things in order. "Grandma," Michael called, pushing the front door open. "We brought Mr. David," a woman's voice answered from inside. "Coming, sweetheart." A moment later, an elderly lady appeared at the door. David guessed she was around 65, with graying hair pulled into a bun and tired but kind eyes. She wore a simple dress and an apron, leaning slightly on a cane. "Good afternoon," she said, extending her hand to David. "I'm Elizabeth Parker, grandmother to these 3 little troublemakers." "David Thompson," he introduced himself, shaking her hand. "Nice to meet you." "The pleasure's mine. The boys have told me how kind you've been to them. Please come in." I'll make some coffee." David stepped into the small house, which was impeccably clean and organized. The living room was simple, with an old but well-kept sofa, a small TV, and a few family photos on the walls. He noticed there were no recent pictures of the boys, only some from when they were babies. "Have a seat, please," Mrs. Elizabeth said, gesturing to the sofa. "Boys, go wash your hands and help me in the kitchen." As the boys left the room, Mrs. Elizabeth settled into an armchair near the sofa and studied David for a moment. "Can I be frank with you, David?" she asked. "Of course. In 40 years of raising children, I've learned to recognize when an adult has good intentions and when they don't. You seem like a good person, but I'm curious to know why you're interested in helping my grandchildren." David took a deep breath. This was his chance to start uncovering the truth, but he needed to be careful. "To be honest, Mrs. Elizabeth, there's something about your grandchildren that caught my attention. They remind me of myself when I was a child." "Really?" she said, tilting her head. "In what way?" "Physically, mostly. But also the way they talk, some of their mannerisms. The resemblance is very strong." Mrs. Elizabeth fell silent for a moment, as if processing this information. "How interesting," she murmured. "Do you have any children of your own?" "No," David replied. "My wife and I couldn't have children." "I see. Have you considered adoption?" "We've talked about it, but we haven't made any decisions yet." Mrs. Elizabeth nodded slowly. "David, may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "How old are you?" 42. "And where were you born?" David felt his heart race. Why was she asking these questions? "I was born in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, but I moved to New York City to study when I was young." Mrs. Elizabeth's eyes widened slightly, as if she'd heard something surprising. "Lancaster," she repeated slowly. "And what did you study?" "Engineering, at Columbia University." Mrs. Elizabeth fell silent again, but David could see she was deep in thought. "Mrs. Elizabeth, may I ask about the boys' parents?" he asked gently. She sighed deeply. "My daughter Sarah passed away when the boys were just 4. She was driving on a rainy night and—" She stopped speaking, clearly emotional at the memory. "I'm so sorry for your loss," David said sincerely. "Thank you. Sarah was a special girl, very determined. She wanted so badly to be a mother that she decided to have children even without a partner." A chill ran down David's spine. "What do you mean?" "She used artificial insemination, chose a donor from a clinic here in New York City. At the time, I didn't fully approve of the idea, but she was set on it." Mrs. Elizabeth's words confirmed David's suspicions. He tried to keep his voice steady as he asked, "Do you remember which clinic?" "Yes, I do. It was the New Life Clinic in the central area. Sarah was very careful in her selection. She wanted a donor who was intelligent, healthy, and came from a family with good values." David recognized the clinic's name immediately. It was exactly where he had made his donations 20 years earlier. "Did she ever learn anything about the donor?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Not much. The donations were anonymous, so she only had access to basic information. But I remember she was very satisfied with her choice." "What kind of information did she have?" Mrs. Elizabeth slowly rose from her chair. "Wait here a moment. I'll get something that might interest you." She left the room, leaving David alone with his racing thoughts. Everything was falling into place in a way that was both thrilling and terrifying. The boys were the right age, born through artificial insemination at the clinic where he had donated, and the physical resemblance was undeniable. A few minutes later, Mrs. Elizabeth returned carrying an old folder. "Sarah was very organized," she explained, sitting back down. "She kept all the documents related to the pregnancy and the boy's birth." She opened the folder and pulled out some papers. "Here's the profile of the donor she chose," she said, handing a sheet to David. With trembling hands, David took the paper and began to read. What he saw left him breathless. Donor 247, male, 22 years old, 5'10", brown eyes, brown hair, engineering student, originally from Lancaster, PA. Family history with no significant genetic diseases, personality traits, determined, intelligent, with strong family values. David read and reread the profile several times, feeling as if the world was spinning around him. There was no doubt. He was donor 247. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. David, Mrs. Elizabeth called gently. Are you all right? You've gone very pale. He lifted his eyes from the paper, trying to process the magnitude of what he had just discovered. Those 3 boys were indeed his biological sons. His entire life had changed in a matter of seconds. He began, but couldn't finish the sentence. Mrs. Elizabeth watched him carefully, as if studying his reaction. David, she said slowly, is there something you're not telling me? He looked at her, seeing a mix of suspicion and hope in her eyes. She was an intelligent woman who had lived through many experiences and had likely already connected the dots. Mrs. Elizabeth, he finally said, his voice choked with emotion, I think I'm donor 247. The silence that followed seemed to last an eternity. Mrs. Elizabeth stared at him, processing the information she had just received. Are you sure? She whispered. Yes. I made donations at that clinic exactly during the time described, at the age listed. All the details match perfectly. Tears began to stream down Mrs. Elizabeth's face. My God, she murmured, after all these years wondering what the father of my grandchildren would be like. You thought about that? Of course I did, she said, wiping her eyes with her hands. Every time I looked at those boys, I wondered who they had inherited certain traits from. Their intelligence, their determination, their affectionate nature. Now I understand where it came from. David felt his own eyes welling up with tears. 20 years after a decision he had made out of financial necessity, he was face to face with the most significant consequences of his life. Mrs. Elizabeth, aren't you angry with me for showing up here? Angry, she repeated, surprised. David, you've just fulfilled a grandmother's dream. I've always wanted to meet the man who gave my grandchildren the chance to exist. But what about the boys? How will they react? Mrs. Elizabeth thought for a moment. They've always known they were conceived through artificial insemination. Sarah made sure to explain that to them when they were little. She told them they were deeply wanted, and that she carefully chose someone special to be their biological father. And they never showed curiosity about their father? Oh, they did, especially as they grew older and saw other children with their dads. But I always told them their father was a good man who helped Sarah fulfill her dream of becoming a mother. Just then, the boys returned from the kitchen carrying a tray with coffee and some simple cookies. Grandma, the coffee's ready, Ethan announced cheerfully. The 3 of them sat on the couch, one on either side of David and one on the floor, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. David looked at each of them, now noticing details he had missed before. Ethan had his exact eyes. Michael had the same shape to his hands. Christopher had a small dimple in his chin, identical to his. David, Mrs. Elizabeth said, I'd like to talk to the boys about something important. But first I need to know, what are your intentions? What do you plan to do with this discovery? It was a fair and necessary question. David looked at the 3 boys who were now chatting excitedly about school and realized his answer would change all their lives forever. Mrs. Elizabeth, from the moment I saw these boys, I felt a connection I couldn't explain. Now that I know the truth, I'm certain of one thing. I want to be part of their lives, if they'll have me. I want to help, I want to be there, I want to be a father to them. Even knowing it will complicate your life. Does your wife know about the donations? David sighed. No, she doesn't. And yes, it will complicate my life tremendously. But looking at these boys, I can't imagine making any other choice. Grandma? Michael interrupted. Why are you whispering and looking so serious? Mrs. Elizabeth exchanged a glance with David. Boys, sit down here. I need to talk to you about something very important. The 3 of them moved closer, sitting on the rug in front of their grandmother with curious expressions. Do you remember when I explained how you were born? How your mother chose a special man to help her have you? I remember, Christopher said. You told us Mom picked someone smart and kind. Exactly. Well, boys, I believe we've just met that special man. The three boys looked confused, glancing from their grandmother to David and back again. What do you mean, Grandma? Ethan asked. David is your biological father. The silence that followed was deafening. The boys stared at David with a mix of surprise, confusion, and something that looked like hope. Is it true? Michael whispered. David nodded, not trusting his voice to answer. Is that why everyone says we look like you? Christopher asked. That's exactly why, David confirmed, his voice thick with emotion. Ethan, who always seemed the bravest of the three, stood up and stepped closer to David. Does that mean you're our dad? Biologically, yes. But being a father is much more than that. It's about being there, caring, loving. I'd love the chance to be a real father to you if you'll let me. Ethan looked at his brothers, as if silently consulting them. Then he turned back to David. And you won't leave after a while like the other adults who said they'd take care of us. The question hit David like a punch. Clearly, the boys had already been let down by adults who broke their promises. No, he said firmly. If you give me a chance, I promise I'll always be here. Through the good and the bad, the happy times and the hard ones. Even if we do something wrong? Michael asked. Even then, real fathers don't abandon their children over mistakes. They help them learn and grow. Christopher stepped closer too. What about Mrs. Elizabeth? Are you going to take us away from her? David looked at Mrs. Elizabeth, who was watching the conversation with tears in her eyes. Never. Your grandmother loved and cared for you when I didn't even know you existed. She's a vital part of your family, and she always will be. Can we still live here? Ethan asked. For now, of course. But maybe we can make some changes to make things more comfortable for everyone. What do you think? The three boys exchanged glances again, having one of those silent conversations only very close siblings can have. Grandma, Michael finally said, what do you think? Mrs. Elizabeth smiled through her tears. I think it's the greatest gift God could give our family. You deserve a father, and from what I see, David deserves to have you as his sons. It was then that Ethan did something that changed everything. He walked up to David and, with the natural ease of a child, climbed into his lap. Hi, Dad, he said simply. David wrapped his arms around the boy, feeling an emotion he'd never experienced before. Within seconds, Michael and Christopher joined in, forming a group hug that sealed the beginning of a new family. Hi, kids, replied David, his voice completely overcome with emotion. Mrs. Elizabeth watched the scene with a radiant smile, wiping away tears of joy she couldn't hold back. Sarah would be so happy seeing this, she murmured. After a few minutes in that embrace, which seemed to heal years of longing none of them had even known they felt, they pulled apart. The boys began asking David questions, wanting to know everything about his life, his work, his home. Dad, said Christopher, testing out the word, do you have other kids? No, you're my only children. What about your wife? Asked Michael. Will she like us? This was the question David had been dreading. How could he explain to 12-year-olds that his wife didn't even know they existed? My wife doesn't know about you yet, he admitted, but I'm sure she'll love meeting you. Why doesn't she know? Asked Ethan, always direct. Because I only found out about you myself a few days ago. When I made the donation to help your mother, it was supposed to be anonymous. I never knew if it had resulted in children or not. And now that you know, will you tell her? Asked Michael. Yes, I will. Today. Mrs. Elizabeth, who had remained silent during this part of the conversation, finally spoke. David, may I give you some advice? Of course. Be honest with your wife. Tell her everything from the start. Explain your reasons and give her time to process it. This discovery is a shock for everyone, including her. Thank you for the advice, Mrs. Elizabeth. I know it won't be easy. Dad, said Ethan, if your wife doesn't like us, will you stop coming here? The innocent question made David's heart ache. He took all three boys' hands. Listen carefully. Nothing and no one will stop me from being your father. No matter what happens, no matter what challenges come up, you can always count on me. Understood? Understood, they said in unison. Now, David said, glancing at his watch, I need to get back to work, but first there's something urgent I want to take care of. He turned to Mrs. Elizabeth. You mentioned needing money for diabetes medication. How much does the treatment cost per month? David, you don't have to. Mrs. Elizabeth, these are my children. Taking care of them and those who care for them is my responsibility. Please, tell me how much you need. She hesitated for a moment, but then mentioned an amount that made David realize just how hard it had been for her to afford proper treatment. Starting today, you won't have to worry about that anymore, he said, pulling out his checkbook. And I also want to cover other household expenses. Food, clothes for the boys, school supplies, whatever you need. David, that's incredibly generous, but it's not generosity, Mrs. Elizabeth. It's my duty. It's the least I can do after being absent from my children's lives for 12 years. He wrote a check for an amount that would cover not just the medication, but all the family's basic needs for several months. This should give us some peace of mind while we start organizing things better, he said, handing her the check. Mrs. Elizabeth looked at the amount, her eyes widening. David, this is so much money. For me, it's not. And even if it were, you all deserve far more than this. Dad, said Michael, does this mean we won't have to ask for money on the street anymore? Never again, David confirmed. From today on, your only job is to be kids. Study, play, dream. The rest is on me. The boys jumped for joy, hugging David again. It was the first time in so long they had the certainty that their basic needs would always be met. And now, David said, I need to go take care of a few things. But tomorrow I'll be back, and we'll talk about so many things. What time do you get home from school? At 2 in the afternoon, Ethan replied. Perfect. Tomorrow at 2:30 I'll be here, and we'll have the whole afternoon to get to know each other better. He hugged each of them goodbye, promising to return the next day. As he was leaving, Mrs. Elizabeth walked him to the door. David, she said softly, thank you. Not just for the money, but for coming into their lives. These boys needed a father. And I needed them, even without knowing it, he replied. Mrs. Elizabeth, can I ask you something? Of course. How did you know? When I mentioned the resemblance, you already suspected, didn't you? She smiled. David, I spent 12 years looking at these boys and wondering about the man who helped my daughter bring them into this world. When you showed up, it was like all the pieces fell into place. The physical resemblance, the age, the birthplace, the degree. It all made sense. And you weren't afraid I might be a bad person? I was at first. But after talking to you, after seeing how you treat the boys, I knew Sarah had made the right choice. She always said she had a good feeling about the donor she picked. David felt a deep emotion as he thought about the boy's mother, a woman he'd never met, but who had made the decision that gave him the children he never knew he always wanted. I'd like to know more about her, about Sarah. Tomorrow I'll show you pictures and tell you stories. I'm sure you'll be proud of her. She was an extraordinary woman. On the drive back to the office, David was filled with a mix of euphoria and anxiety. His life had completely changed in just a few hours. He had 3 sons, 3 smart, kind, and well-mannered boys who had already won his heart. But now came the hardest part, telling Jennifer everything. When he arrived at the office, Mrs. Dorothy immediately noticed something was different about him. Dr. David, you look different. Did something good happen? He stopped in front of her desk and smiled. Mrs. Dorothy, something happened that changed my life forever. But I can't talk about it yet. All I can say is I might need to make some adjustments to my schedule soon. Adjustments? What kind of adjustments? I might need more time for family matters. Mrs. Dorothy raised her eyebrows. Is Jennifer pregnant? No, it's not that, David said quickly. But it is family-related, yes. Well, whatever it is, you look happy, and that makes me happy too. David spent the rest of the afternoon trying to focus on work, but his mind was completely occupied by the day's events. He reviewed contracts without really reading them, took calls without fully paying attention, and cancelled an important meeting because he knew he couldn't concentrate. All he could think about was how Jennifer would react to the news. She had always been understanding and generous, But this situation would test any relationship. How could he explain to his wife that he had 3 children she never knew about? How could he make her understand that the sperm donations had happened long before they met, but now they had consequences that would affect their entire lives? By 5 in the afternoon, he decided he couldn't pretend to work any longer. He told Mrs. Dorothy he was leaving early and drove home, his heart pounding harder with every mile. Jennifer was in the living room when he arrived, working on some documents on her laptop. She looked up when she heard him come in. "You're home early today," she remarked. "Did you sort out that issue with the kids?" "I did," David said, sitting in the armchair across from the couch where she was. "Jennifer, I need to talk to you about something very important." She closed her laptop immediately, sensing from the seriousness in his tone that it was something significant. "What happened?" "First of all, I want you to know that I love you more than anything in life, and nothing I'm about to say changes that." Jennifer began to grow worried. "David, you're scaring me. Just tell me what's going on." He took a deep breath, knowing there was no turning back. 20 years ago, when I was a college student struggling financially, I donated sperm at a fertility clinic. Jennifer blinked several times, processing the information. "Sperm donations?" "Yes, it was anonymous. I needed money to finish school, and at the time it seemed like a simple solution. I never knew if the donations resulted in children or not." "And why are you telling me this now?" "Because I found out they did. Those 3 kids I met on the street, they're my biological children." The silence that followed was deafening. Jennifer stared at him as if trying to decipher words in a foreign language. "Your biological children?" she finally repeated. "Yes, they're triplets, 12 years old, and they've been raised by their maternal grandmother since their mother passed away 8 years ago." Jennifer abruptly stood up from the couch and began pacing the room. "Wait, let me get this straight. You have 3 children you never told me about, and now they've just appeared in your life? Jennifer, I didn't know they existed. The donations were anonymous. There was no way to know if—" "But you knew it was a possibility," she interrupted, her voice rising. "You donated sperm knowing you could have children out there, and you never thought it was important to tell me." David stood up too, trying to approach her. "Honey, I understand this is a shock, but—" "A shock?" Jennifer repeated with a bitter laugh. "David, we spent 2 years trying to have children, 2 years of tests, doctor visits, me blaming myself for not getting pregnant, and you knew you had 3 living children." "I didn't know," he insisted. "If I had, I would have told you." "But you should have told me about the donations," she shouted. "In 5 years together, you never thought it was important to mention you donated sperm." David realized she was right. Even if he hadn't known about the children, he should have told her about the donations. "You're right," he admitted. "I should have told you. But at the time, it seemed like something from the past that wouldn't affect our lives." "Wouldn't affect our lives?" Jennifer's eyes were now filled with tears. "David, you have 3 children. How does that not affect our lives?" "It does. And that's why I'm telling you now, because starting today, everything is going to change." "What do you mean, everything is going to change?" "I want to be part of their lives. I want to be their real father." Jennifer stopped pacing and faced him. "And what about me? Where do I fit into this? You decided we're raising 3 kids without even consulting me." "It's not like that. I just found out about them today. I'm still processing all of this." "And what decisions have you already made while processing all of this?" David hesitated, knowing his next answer would be crucial. "I gave their grandmother money for medicine and the children's basic needs." "How much money?" "Enough to keep them comfortable for a while." "David!" Jennifer exploded. "You used our money to support 3 kids without even asking me." "They're my children, Jennifer." "And I'm your wife," she shouted back. "Or at least I thought I was. But apparently you make major decisions about our lives and our money without even consulting me." The argument was escalating in a way David hadn't anticipated. He tried to calm himself and speak in a softer tone. "Jennifer, please, let's talk calmly. I know this is a lot to process, but—" "Talk calmly," she interrupted. "David, you came here and told me you have 3 children to support with our money. How do you expect me to react? I want you to understand that they're innocent in all this. They're children who need help. And I get that. said Jennifer, wiping her tears. "But what hurts me is finding out my husband hid something so important from me, and that he made decisions about our future without including me." David moved closer to her again, this time managing to take her hands. "Honey, I didn't hide it intentionally, and about the decisions, you're right. I should have talked to you before acting. But when I saw those boys, when I found out they were my sons, I just couldn't ignore the situation." Jennifer looked into his eyes for a long moment. "What are they like?" she finally asked, her voice softer. "They're amazing," said David, his eyes shining. "Smart, polite, affectionate. Despite all the hardships they've been through, they're happy, well-adjusted boys. And do they look like you?" "A lot. The resemblance is striking." Jennifer took a deep breath. "David, I need time to process all this. It's not just about you having children, it's about how I found out. It's about realizing there are important parts of your life I didn't know. I understand, and I'm willing to give you all the time you need. And in the meantime, what happens to the children? I'll keep helping them, but I really want you to meet them when you're ready. David, are you sure they're your sons? Did you take a test?" "I haven't done a DNA test yet, but all the evidence points to it. The physical resemblance, the dates, the clinic, it all adds up. Maybe it's better to be sure before getting too emotionally involved." "You're right. I'll arrange the test tomorrow." Jennifer sat back on the couch, looking exhausted. "I need to think about all this, David. I need to understand how it affects our marriage, our plans, our life." "We'll figure this out together," he said, sitting beside her. "I love you, and I know you love me too. We'll find a way to make this work." "I hope so," she said, but there was uncertainty in her voice. That night, they ate dinner in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. David knew he had hurt Jennifer deeply, not just by not telling her about the donations, but by making unilateral decisions about a situation that affected them both. Before bed, he tried to hug her, but she gently pulled away. "I need space tonight," she said. "We'll talk more tomorrow." David lay awake all night, staring at the ceiling and thinking about how his life had completely changed in 2 days. He had discovered he had 3 sons, found a purpose he never knew was missing in his life, but at the same time, he had created a crisis in his marriage. The next day, David woke up determined to do things right. First, he would call Dr. Richard Wilson to arrange the DNA test. Then, he'd talk to Mrs. Dorothy about adjusting his schedule to spend more time with the boys. And in the afternoon, he'd return to Mrs. Elizabeth's house to keep getting to know his sons. During breakfast, Jennifer was visibly calmer, but still distant. "I've made a decision," she said. "I'm going away for a few days to think. I'll stay at my sister's place." David's heart sank. "Jennifer, you don't have to do that. We can work this out here at home." "David, in 5 years of marriage, this is the first time I've felt like I don't know the man I married. I need perspective. And how much time do you need? I don't know. But I promise that when I return, we'll have an honest conversation about our future. Our future includes those children, Jennifer. They're a part of me now." She looked at him with an expression that mixed sadness and determination. "I know, and that's exactly why I need to be sure I can handle this new reality." After Jennifer left for work, and he assumed to pack, David called Dr. Richard Wilson. "Doctor, I need your help with an urgent personal matter." "Of course, David, what can I do?" "I need to arrange a paternity test, and I need it done as quickly as possible. I can arrange it for today if necessary, but may I ask what the situation is?" David gave the lawyer a brief version of the story, who listened in silence. "I see," Dr. Richard finally said. "That explains the private investigator's questions." "What do you mean?" "David, I looked into that investigator I mentioned to you yesterday. I found out he was hired by your sister-in-law, Amanda." David's blood ran cold. Amanda was Jennifer's sister and had never hidden the fact that she disliked him. She always thought Jennifer could have married someone better. "Amanda hired an investigator to spy on me." "It seems so. And based on the questions he asked, she's looking for something to use against you. Does that mean she might already know about the boys?" "It's possible. Private investigators are very efficient when they want to uncover something. David felt like he was being attacked from all sides. On top of the crisis with Jennifer, now he had to worry about his sister-in-law trying to undermine him. "Dr. Richard, what can I do to protect myself?" "First, let's confirm paternity with the DNA test. Then, we'll document everything properly. If Amanda is looking for ways to attack you, we need all the facts organized and verified." "Agreed. Can you schedule the test for today?" "I can. And David, one more thing. You should tell Jennifer about the investigator. If she doesn't know her sister is interfering in your marriage, she has the right to." "You're right. I'll tell her today." After hanging up, David reflected on how the situation was growing more complicated. He had hoped that discovering the children would be the biggest challenge he'd face, but now he realized it was only the beginning. At the office, Mrs. Dorothy noticed he looked even more troubled than in previous days. "Dr. David, you don't look like someone who got good news yesterday." "It's complicated, Mrs. Dorothy. Sometimes the best news comes with the biggest challenges." "Can I help with anything?" David looked at the woman who had been like a mother to him all these years. If there was anyone he could trust, it was Mrs. Dorothy. "Mrs. Dorothy, if I told you I just found out I have 3 children I never knew about, would you think I've lost my mind?" She studied him for a moment, as if gauging whether he was serious. "Dr. David, in my 70 years of life, I've learned that the most impossible things sometimes make the most sense. Tell me the story." David told her everything: the sperm donations, meeting the boys, his conversation with Mrs. Elizabeth, and the crisis with Jennifer. She listened quietly, nodding occasionally and asking pointed questions. "And what do you think about all this?" he asked at the end. "I think you're a blessed man," she said without hesitation. 3 children are a gift, no matter how they came into your life. What about Jennifer? Do you think she'll be able to accept this?" Mrs. Dorothy thought carefully before answering. "Dr. David, Mrs. Jennifer is a smart and kind-hearted woman. But she's also proud and doesn't like surprises. You hurt her by not telling her about the donations from the start. She'll need time to process not just the existence of the boys, but also the fact that she's learning something so important about her husband after all this time. And what if she can't accept it? Then you'll have to choose. But my impression is that once she meets these boys, once she sees how much they need a father and how much you need them, she'll understand that you can form an even bigger and stronger family." Mrs. Dorothy's words gave David a glimmer of hope. She knew both him and Jennifer well, and if she thought there was a chance for reconciliation, then maybe there really was. At lunchtime, David drove to the lab where he'd take the DNA test. Dr. Richard Wilson had managed to schedule it for that afternoon, promising the results would be ready in 48 hours. After the lab, he went to Mrs. Elizabeth's house. The boys hadn't arrived from school yet, so he took the opportunity to talk more with their grandmother. "How were they this morning?" he asked. "Over the moon," Mrs. Elizabeth replied with a smile. "They barely slept last night. Ethan stayed up asking questions about you until almost midnight." "What kind of questions?" "They wanted to know everything. What you were like as a child, what foods you like, what sports you play, if you have a bike, if you know how to play soccer. Kid stuff, you know." David felt his heart warm. They were genuinely curious about him. They wanted to know him as their father. "And your wife?" Mrs. Elizabeth asked gently. "How did she take it?" David told her about the argument with Jennifer and her decision to step back for a while. "She has every right to be confused and hurt," Mrs. Elizabeth said. "Finding out your husband has 3 sons isn't something easy to accept." "Do you think I did the wrong thing?" "I think you did what any father would do upon discovering he has children in need, but I also understand you should have included your wife in the decisions. So now, how do I balance both, being a father to these boys and saving my marriage?" "David, sometimes life puts us in situations where there are no easy choices. What matters is always doing what's right, even when it's hard." "And what's right in this case?" "Being the best father you can be to these boys. They've already lost their mother, grew up without knowing their father, and now they finally have the chance for a complete family. If your wife can't accept that, it'll be a great loss, but it can't be a reason to abandon your children." Mrs. Elizabeth's wisdom struck David. She had perfectly summed up the conflict he was feeling. "You're right. My first responsibility now is to them. And I'm sure deep down, your wife understands that too. She just needs time." When the boys got home from school, the energy in the house completely changed. They ran to hug David as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Dad!" all three shouted at once. "Hey, guys! How was school today?" "We told everyone we found our dad," Ethan said excitedly. "And what did people say?" "Our teacher was really happy for us," Michael said. "She said it was a miracle." "And the other kids were curious to meet you," Christopher added. David was moved by their enthusiasm. It was clear that being there, part of their everyday lives, was where he belonged. "Dad," Ethan said, "can we go to your house one day?" The question hit David like a punch. How could he explain that his home was in turmoil because of their existence? "One day, yes," he replied, "but first, let's get to know each other better right here." "Will your wife like us?" Michael asked. David hesitated but decided to be honest. "She's still getting used to the idea that you exist. Sometimes adults need time to understand new things." "Does she not want us to be her kids?" asked Christopher with a worried expression. "It's not that," David said quickly. "She was just surprised because I'd never told her about you. But that's not your fault. It's because I didn't even know you existed." "And now she's mad at you?" asked Ethan. "A little. But she'll understand. And when she meets you, she'll see how special you are." Mrs. Elizabeth, who had been silently observing the conversation, stepped in. "Boys, how about we show your father some pictures of your mum? I think he'd like to get to know her better." The suggestion was met with enthusiasm by the boys, who ran off to grab some photo albums. David spent the next hour getting to know Sarah through the images and the stories Mrs. Elizabeth and the boys shared. Sarah was a beautiful woman with a sweet smile and intelligent eyes. In the photos, she always seemed to be laughing or making funny faces at the camera. It was clear she had a very close relationship with her children and her mother. She was a nurse, Mrs. Elizabeth said, worked at the public hospital nearby. She always said she wanted to help people. "And she was really smart," added Michael. "She always helped us with our homework. And she was a great cook," said Christopher, "especially her chocolate cake." "She always said you boys were the greatest gift of her life," Mrs. Elizabeth shared, tears in her eyes, "that she'd chosen the perfect father for you." David felt deeply moved. Even though he'd never met Sarah, he felt immense gratitude toward her. She had taken good care of the boys, taught them strong values, and raised three extraordinary little human beings. "I wish I could have met her," he said sincerely. "She'd be so happy knowing you came into their lives," Mrs. Elizabeth replied. "She always worried about what would happen if something ever happened to her. Now I know she can rest in peace." David spent 2 more hours with the boys, helping them with homework, playing, and simply enjoying their company. It was amazing how natural he felt in that role, as if he'd been born to be the father of those 3 boys. As he was saying goodbye, Ethan tugged on his sleeve. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "If your wife doesn't like us, will you choose her or us?" The innocent question pierced David's heart. He knelt to Ethan's level and cupped the boy's face in his hands. "Ethan, listen to me very carefully. No matter what happens, I will always be your father. I will always be here for you. Nothing and no one will ever change that. Understood?" "Understood," Ethan said, but David could still see the worry in his eyes. "And that goes for all 3 of you," he added, looking at Michael and Christopher too. "We're a family now, and families don't abandon each other." On the way home, David thought about Ethan's question. The boy had touched a nerve. If it came down to choosing between Jennifer and the boys, what would he do? The answer came faster than he expected. As much as he loved Jennifer, as much as he wanted to save his marriage, he couldn't live with himself if he abandoned 3 children who needed him, especially after seeing them, getting to know them, and realizing how special they were. When he got home, he found a note from Jennifer on the kitchen table. "David, I went to Amanda's. I need a few days to think about everything. Don't try to call me for now. When I'm ready to talk, I'll call you. I love you, but I need to figure out if I still know who you are. Jennifer." The note confirmed David's worst fears. Jennifer had gone straight to the house of the very person trying to harm him. Amanda would certainly seize the opportunity to further poison her sister's mind against him. David picked up the phone and called Dr. Richard Wilson. "Doctor, the situation has gotten more complicated. Jennifer went to Amanda's house. That's not good. Amanda will use her sister's emotional vulnerability to turn her against you." "What can I do?" "For now, nothing. If you try to contact Jennifer now, it might look like you're pressuring her. But be prepared for anything. Amanda may be planning to use the information she's gathered to force a separation. And legally, can she harm me? It depends on what she's found. But David, if the boys are truly your biological children, you have legal rights and responsibilities toward them. No one can stop you from caring for your own children. What about the DNA test results? They should be ready by tomorrow afternoon. Once we have official confirmation, we'll document everything properly." That night, David ate dinner alone in a house that had never felt so empty. He tried watching TV, reading some work documents, anything to distract his mind, but nothing worked. All he could think about were the boys asking if his wife would like them, and Jennifer discovering there were important parts of his life she didn't know. How had he reached the point where the two most important things in his life seemed incompatible? His phone rang around 10 at night. It was a number he didn't recognize. "Hello? David? It's Amanda." His blood ran cold. Why was his sister-in-law calling him? "Hi, Amanda. Is Jennifer okay?" "She's processing some interesting information I received today." Her tone made it clear she wasn't calling to discuss her sister's well-being. "What kind of information?" "Information about your double life, David. About the children you hid from my sister for 5 years of marriage." "Amanda, I didn't hide anything. I only found out about them." "Don't give me that," she interrupted. "You knew you'd donated sperm. You knew you could have children out there, and you never told Jennifer. That's dishonesty. And you hired a private investigator to spy on me. That's an invasion of privacy." There was silence on the other end. "How did you know about the investigator?" "It doesn't matter how I know. What matters is you're trying to destroy my marriage." "I'm trying to protect my sister from a man with secrets who now wants to use her money to support 3 kids. They're my children, Amanda. Prove it. Where are the DNA tests? How can you be sure those children are yours?" David realized she had a point. Until he had official results, he technically couldn't prove anything. "The tests are being processed." "Oh, how convenient. So you're making decisions that affect marital assets based on an assumption. Amanda, what do you want?" "I want you to walk away from my sister, ask for a divorce and leave her in peace." "And if I don't?" "Then I'll use every piece of information I have to prove in court that you're a dishonest and irresponsible husband. I'll make sure Jennifer gets the majority of the assets in the divorce." "You're bluffing." "Am I?" "David, I've been a lawyer for 15 years. I know exactly how to use this information against you in a divorce case." The call ended, leaving David with a sense of despair. He was under attack from all sides. Jennifer was hurt and confused. Amanda was actively working against him, and he still didn't have official confirmation that the boys were his sons. But one thing he knew for sure: no matter what obstacles came his way, he wouldn't abandon Ethan, Michael, and Christopher. They had won his heart in just a few days, and he would do anything to protect and care for them. The next morning, David woke up with renewed determination. If Amanda wanted a war, she would get one. But he would do it the right way, protecting both his interests and the boys. The first thing he did was call Dr. Richard Wilson. "Doctor, Amanda called me yesterday threatening to use the information she gathered against me in a potential divorce." That was to be expected. "What exactly did she say?" David recounted the conversation with his sister-in-law. "She's bluffing, in part," Dr. Richard assessed. "But it's true she could use the situation to sway a divorce in Jennifer's favor. That's why it's crucial we get the DNA results today. And if the results confirm they're my children, then Amanda loses her biggest weapon. Taking care of your own kids isn't irresponsibility. It's a legal and moral obligation." "What about the fact I didn't tell Jennifer about the donations?" "That's trickier. It could be seen as dishonesty, but it could also be viewed as an omission about something from your past you believed wouldn't affect the present. I need to talk to Jennifer before Amanda completely influences her. I agree, but be careful. If Jennifer feels pressured, she might shut down even more. David hung up and immediately tried calling Jennifer. Her phone was off. At the office, Mrs. Dorothy noticed he was even more tense. "Mr. David, you look like you didn't sleep." "I didn't, Mrs. Dorothy. The situation is getting complicated. Can I help with anything?" "Actually, yes. If anyone calls asking about me, my personal or professional life, could you say I'm in a meeting and transfer them to Dr. Richard?" "Of course. But may I ask why?" David told her about Amanda's investigation and the threats he'd received. "That sister-in-law of yours is a snake," Mrs. Dorothy said indignantly. "I never liked her. Always thought she was jealous of you." "Jealous? Of course. You've achieved everything in life. Professional success, a thriving business, a happy marriage. People like her can't stand seeing others happy. And now she has the perfect chance to try and destroy it all. But she won't succeed, Mr. David. The truth always comes out, and you're a good man. That counts for something." Around 2 in the afternoon, Dr. Richard called with the DNA results. "David, I have good news. The test confirmed it. You're the biological father of all 3 boys." David felt a mix of relief and emotion. Now he was absolutely certain. Ethan, Michael, and Christopher were his sons. "Thank you, Dr. Richard. Now I need to tell them and then use this to try and resolve things with Jennifer." "David, one important thing. Now that we have official confirmation, you have legal rights and responsibilities toward these children. That includes the right to make decisions about their well-being and the obligation to support them." "Does this protect me legally?" "Yes. No court can criticize a father for taking care of his own children. If Amanda tries to use this against you, it could backfire on her." David left the office early and drove straight to Mrs. Elizabeth's house. When he arrived, the boys hadn't returned from school yet, so he took the chance to talk to their grandmother. "Mrs. Elizabeth, I got the DNA results. It's official. They're my children." The woman's eyes filled with tears of joy. "I knew it. From the moment you showed up here, I knew you were their father." "How did you know?" "A grandmother just knows these things, David. Besides the physical resemblance, there was something in the way you looked at them, like you recognized something familiar." "And now, how do I tell them?" "Just tell them the truth. They already knew you were their father in their hearts. The test only confirmed what we all felt." When the boys came home from school, David gathered them in the living room. "Everyone, I have some important news to share." "Good or bad?" asked Ethan, always direct. "Very good. I got the results of the test today, and it confirms that you really are my sons." "We already knew that," said Michael with a smile. "How did you know?" "Because we could feel it," explained Christopher. "From the very first day, it was like we always knew you were our dad." David was moved by the boys' response. To them, the DNA test was just a formality. They had already fully accepted him as their father. "And now that it's official," he said, "I can make some important decisions about your future." "What kind of decisions?" asked Ethan. "First, I want to enroll you in a better school, one where you can develop all the potential you have." "But we like our school," said Michael. "And you can keep liking it if you want. But I want you to have every opportunity possible. We can visit some schools, and you can decide where you feel most comfortable." "What about Grandma?" asked Christopher. "Is she coming too?" "Of course, Mrs. Elizabeth is a key part of our family. In fact, I have a proposal for her too." He turned to the older woman. "Mrs. Elizabeth, how about we renovate this house? We can expand it, add more bedrooms, a bigger kitchen, everything you need to be more comfortable." "David, that's very generous, but it's not generosity. It's an investment in our family. I want you to have everything you deserve." "And your wife?" asked Mrs. Elizabeth. "Did she agree to these plans?" David sighed. "Jennifer is going through a tough time, trying to understand how our life has changed. But no matter what, you are my children and my responsibility." "Does she not want us to be your family?" asked Ethan sadly. "It's not that, son. She was just surprised because she found out about you suddenly. but I'm sure once she gets to know you, she'll love you just as much as I do." "What if she doesn't want to meet us?" asked Michael. David thought carefully before answering. "Then it would be a huge loss for her, because you are the most special people I've ever known." That afternoon, David spent hours playing and talking with the boys. He was starting to understand each of their personalities. Ethan was the bravest and most straightforward. Michael was the most sensitive and observant. Christopher was the most playful and optimistic. As he was leaving, Mrs. Elizabeth called him aside. "David, can I give you some advice? Always. Don't give up on your wife. I know things are hard, but true love can overcome these obstacles." "I don't want to give up, Mrs. Elizabeth, but I can't abandon you to try to save my marriage. And that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm saying fight for both your new family and your old one." "How?" "Show your wife that these boys aren't a threat to your marriage. They're a chance to build an even bigger, stronger family." Mrs. Elizabeth's words echoed in David's mind the whole way home. Maybe she was right. Maybe he could find a way to unite the two most important parts of his life. When he got home, there was a message from Jennifer on the answering machine. "David, it's Jennifer. I know you must be worried, but I need you to understand that I need time. Amanda told me some things about investigations, about money, about decisions you made without consulting me. I'm confused and hurt. Don't call me for now. When I'm ready to talk, I'll reach out." The message confirmed David's worst fears. Amanda was really using the situation to turn Jennifer against him. He picked up the phone and called Dr. Richard Wilson. "Doctor, I need to do something urgently. Amanda is manipulating Jennifer against me. What do you have in mind?" "I want to go there and talk to Jennifer in person, show her the DNA results, explain everything from the beginning." "David, that might be a mistake. If Jennifer asked for space and you show up, it could seem like you don't respect her boundaries. But if I do nothing, Amanda will have enough time to convince her I'm the villain. How about a compromise? Write Jennifer a letter. Tell her the whole truth. Attach the DNA results, explain your motivations. Have someone deliver it to her personally." The idea sounded good to David. A letter would give Jennifer the chance to process the information without feeling pressured. David spent the entire night writing and rewriting the letter. He wanted to explain everything: why he had made the donations 20 years ago, why he'd never told her about them, how he'd found out about the boys, and why he'd made the decisions he did. In the letter, he also spoke about the love he felt for her, how he wanted her to be part of the new family they were forming, and how he was willing to do anything to save their marriage. The next day, David asked Mrs. Dorothy to deliver the letter to Jennifer personally. She had offered to help, and since Jennifer liked her, she'd be more likely to accept the correspondence. "Mrs. Dorothy, it's very important that you give this directly to Jennifer, not Amanda." "Don't worry, Dr. David. I'll make sure of it." While waiting for Jennifer's response, David focused on organizing the boys' lives. He visited 3 prestigious private schools and scheduled tours for the boys that weekend. He also hired a renovation company to assess Mrs. Elizabeth's house and prepare an estimate to improve the family's living conditions. Most importantly, he began establishing a routine with the boys. Every evening after work, he went to their house. He helped with homework, played, talked, and slowly built the father-son relationship they had all missed for the first 12 years. "Dad," Ethan said one evening, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "If your wife doesn't want to be our mom, will you find another woman to marry?" The question caught David off guard. "Why are you thinking about that?" "Because every family needs a mom," Michael explained, "and we'd like to have one." "And if it's Jennifer, even better," Christopher added. "That way you won't have to choose between her and us." David realized the boys were more worried about the situation than they let on. They wanted a complete family, but were afraid it might cost him his marriage. "Listen to me," he said, pulling all 3 close. "No matter what happens with Jennifer, you will always be my priority. If she can't accept you, it'll be her loss and mine, but never yours." "But will you be sad if she doesn't come back?" Michael asked. "I'll be sad, yes, but I'll be much happier having you in my life. What if she comes back but doesn't want to be our mom?" Christopher asked. "Then we'll talk about it when it happens. but there's no point worrying about things that might not even happen. On Thursday, 3 days after sending the letter, David finally got a call from Jennifer. "David, it's me. Jennifer, thank you for calling. Did you get my letter?" "I did, and I've read it several times." "What did you think?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "David, I understand better now why you made the decisions you did, and the DNA results really prove they are your children. So you understand I couldn't just ignore their situation?" "I do, but that doesn't change the fact you hid something important from me for 5 years of our relationship." "Jennifer, I didn't hide it intentionally. At the time, it seemed like something from the past that wouldn't have consequences. I know, and that's why I'm calling. I want to talk to you in person." David's heart raced. "When? Where?" "Tonight, at home. Amanda is going out so we can talk calmly." "Jennifer, are you still at her place?" "I am, but not because of her. I'm here because I need space to think." "Have you come to any conclusions?" "A few. Others I'm still processing. That's why I want to talk to you." "What time?" "At 8. And David, come prepared for an honest conversation. No omissions, no half-truths." "Agreed." After hanging up, David felt hopeful for the first time in days. Jennifer wanted to talk, which meant there was still a chance to save their marriage. He called Mrs. Elizabeth to let her know he might be late that day. "David, this is wonderful news," she said when he told her about Jennifer's call. "Yeah, but I still don't know what she's decided." "Whatever she decides, the fact she wants to talk shows there's still love between you." "I hope you're right." "And the boys? Will you tell them about this conversation?" "Better not to raise their hopes. If all goes well, I'll tell them later." "Good luck, David. I'll be rooting for you." At exactly 8 that evening, David was at Amanda's doorstep. Jennifer opened the door herself, dressed casually, her expression serious but not hostile. "Hi," she said. "Hi. Thank you for agreeing to talk. Come in." Amanda went out to dinner with friends, so we have a few hours. They sat in the living room of a house David knew well, but which now felt strange and unwelcoming. Jennifer faced him as if preparing for an important negotiation. "David, these past few days I've thought a lot about our conversation, your letter, everything I've learned. And what conclusions have you reached? First, I understand you truly didn't know you had children. The documents you attached to the letter make that clear. Thank you for seeing that. Second, I get that once you found out about them, you couldn't just ignore their situation. They're your biological children, and they needed help." "Exactly. But third, and this is important, I'm still hurt that you hid the sperm donations our entire relationship." David sighed. "Jennifer, I know I made a mistake by not telling you, but back then, 5 years ago, it seemed irrelevant, just part of my past." "Irrelevant? David, you knew I couldn't get pregnant. You knew how much that hurt me. Did it never occur to you that I should know you donated sperm?" Her words made David realize how insensitive he'd been. While Jennifer blamed herself for not giving them children, he'd hidden the fact that he might already have kids out there. "You're right," he admitted. "I should have told you from the start. It was thoughtless of me." "It was. But that's not all that bothers me." "What else?" "The decisions you made alone. Giving them money, promising to take care of them, all without consulting me. Jennifer, when I saw those boys, when I found out they were my sons, You just forgot you had a wife," she interrupted. "David, I understand the emotions of the moment, but we've been married 5 years. We should make these kinds of decisions together." "You're right. I let my emotions take over and didn't think about what it would do to our marriage." And that's exactly where we get to the main point of this conversation. David felt his stomach tighten. From the seriousness in Jennifer's tone, he knew the next part of the conversation would be decisive. "What point?" "David, you have 3 children now. That changes everything in our lives. Our finances, our plans, our routine, everything." "I know, and I know it's a lot to process." "It's not just about processing. It's about deciding whether I can handle this new reality." "And can you?" Jennifer stayed silent for a long moment. as if weighing every word she would say next. David, I always wanted to be a mother. I always dreamed of having a family. When I found out I couldn't get pregnant naturally, it was devastating for me. I know, and I always tried to support you through that. Yes, you did. But now you've found out you can be a father, and I still can't be a mother. David began to understand where she was going with this. Jennifer, you can be a mother to these boys. They need a maternal figure. But they're not my biological children. They're yours. So what? Being a mother is so much more than biology. It's about love, care, being there. I know that rationally, she said, tears in her eyes. But emotionally, it's complicated. These boys are living proof that you could have children when I couldn't. The pain in Jennifer's voice broke David's heart. He hadn't considered that perspective before. Sweetheart, it's not like that. They're not proof of anything. They're just children who need a family. David, you've already met them. You've already fallen in love with them. I can see it in your eyes when you talk about them. It's true. They won me over very quickly. What if I can't love them the same way? What if I always see them as a reminder of what I couldn't give you? Jennifer's question was brutally honest and painfully understandable. Jennifer, you're one of the most generous and loving people I know. If you give them a chance, I'm sure you'll love them. But what if I don't? What if it destroys our marriage? Then we'll face that problem if it comes, but we can't make decisions based on fears of what might happen. Jennifer stood up and began pacing the room. David, these past few days here at Amanda's house, she's made me see some things I hadn't considered. David's stomach tightened even more. There it was. Amanda's toxic influence. What things? That you hid something fundamental from me. That you made major financial decisions without consulting me. That our entire life will have to revolve around 3 children I didn't choose to have. And do you agree with her? Partly, yes. Which part? The part about you hiding the donations. The part about the unilateral decisions. The part about how this will completely change our lives. And the part about the boys being a problem? Jennifer hesitated before answering. I don't know yet. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Jennifer, can I suggest something? What? How about you meet them before deciding anything? It's easy to see them as a problem when they're just an abstract idea. But when you meet Ethan, Michael, and Christopher in person, you'll see they're just sweet, well-behaved children. What if I meet them and still can't accept them as part of our family? Then we'll have to talk about what the next step is for us. What next step? David took a deep breath, knowing his next response could determine the future of their marriage. Jennifer, I love you more than anything, but I can't abandon my children. If you can't accept that, then maybe we'll have to consider other alternatives. Other alternatives like divorce. Like divorce. The silence that followed was deafening. David had laid all his cards on the table. Now it was up to Jennifer to decide whether she wanted to fight for the marriage or give up on it. David, she finally said, her voice trembling, would you really choose them over me? I don't want to choose anyone, Jennifer. I want all of us to be part of the same family. But if I'm forced to choose between abandoning 3 innocent children or losing you, then yes, I'll choose to take care of them. Jennifer began to cry. 5 years of marriage, and you'd choose 3 children you just met a week ago. They're not just 3 children, Jennifer. They're my kids, and any decent father would make the same choice. Even if it cost you the marriage, even if it cost me anything. Jennifer sat back down, wiping her tears. What if I said I want to try? That I want to meet them and see if we can become a family? David's heart filled with hope. Then I'd say you're the amazing woman I fell in love with, and I'm sure everything will work out. But I have conditions. What conditions? First, no more unilateral decisions. Anything that affects our family has to be decided together. I completely agree. Second, I'll need time to adjust. I can't just become a mother to 3 kids overnight. Take all the time you need. Third, if at any point I feel like I can't handle it, we have to talk about it honestly. Deal. And fourth, you can never hide anything important from me again. Total transparency from now on. I promise. Jennifer took a deep breath. All right, I'll come home tomorrow, and this weekend I want to meet your kids. Our kids, David gently corrected. They're not our kids yet, David. They're your kids, and I'll try to accept them as ours. It's a start. It's a start, she agreed. They talked for 2 more hours, working out practical details. How Jennifer's first meeting with the boys would go, how they'd adjust their finances to include the children's expenses, and how they'd rearrange their routines for 3 kids. As David was leaving, Jennifer held his arm. David, I'm still hurt, and I'm still terrified this might not work, but I'll try because I love you and because I believe deep down you're a good man trying to do the right thing. Thank you for giving me this chance, love. I won't let you down. I hope not. On the way home, David felt more hopeful than he had in a week. Jennifer was willing to try, and that was more than he could have hoped for. When he got home, he called Mrs. Elizabeth to share the news. David, how did it go? Better than I expected. Jennifer wants to meet the boys this weekend. That's wonderful. They'll be so happy. Mrs. Elizabeth, can I ask you a favor? Of course. Could you prepare the boys for this meeting? Explain that Jennifer is nervous and they need to be patient with her. Don't worry, I'll talk to them tomorrow. And Mrs. Elizabeth, thank you for everything, for taking care of the boys all these years, for welcoming me so warmly when I showed up, for all your wise advice. David, I'm the one who's grateful for coming into our lives, for wanting to be a father to these boys, for fighting to keep your family together. Sarah would be so proud. On Friday, David only worked half a day. He wanted everything to be perfect for Jennifer's meeting with the boys on Saturday. He bought them new clothes, took them all for haircuts, and talked at length about how they should behave. Dad, Ethan asked, will your wife like us? I'm sure she will, but she's nervous because this is all new to her. So you need to be patient and kind. What should we call her? Michael asked. For now, let's call her Jennifer. If you all get along, we can talk later about other ways to address her. What if she doesn't like us? Asked Christopher. That won't happen. But if she seems distant or cold, don't take it personally. She just needs time to adjust. On Saturday morning, David was more nervous than he'd ever been in any important business meeting. He knew the next few hours could determine whether his family would come together or drift apart for good. Jennifer had suggested their first meeting be in a neutral place, so they agreed to meet at a park near Mrs. Elizabeth's house. It was an open space with activities for the kids, where everyone would feel more at ease. David arrived at the park with the boys 10 minutes early. They were visibly nervous, but also excited to meet the woman who might become their stepmother. Dad, is she here yet? Asked Ethan, looking around. Not yet, but she should be here soon. What if she doesn't come? Asked Michael, always the most worried. She'll come, David said firmly. Jennifer always keeps her promises. A few minutes later, David saw Jennifer walking toward them. She was dressed casually and carried a bag that seemed to hold gifts. That's her, said Christopher, pointing. Remember what we talked about, David reminded them. Be kind and patient. As Jennifer approached, David noticed she was just as nervous as the boys. Her eyes shone with anxiety, but there was determination in her posture. Hi, she said, stopping a few feet away. Hi, sweetheart, David replied. Boys, this is Jennifer, my wife. Hi, Jennifer, the three said together. Jennifer looked at each of them for a moment, and David saw the shock in her eyes as she noticed how much they resembled him. Wow, she murmured. You really do look just like your dad. We know, Ethan said with a grin. Everyone says that. What are your names? She asked, crouching to their level. I'm Ethan. I'm Michael. And I'm Christopher. It's so nice to meet you, Jennifer said, shaking each of their hands. David's told me so much about you. And he's told us a lot about you too, Michael said. He said you're really smart and pretty. Jennifer smiled for the first time since arriving. That's very kind of him. And of you too. I brought you some things, she said, opening the bag. I wasn't sure what you liked, so I brought different options. She pulled out 3 adventure books, some board games, and candy. Thank you, the boy said, clearly excited about the gifts. Do you like reading? Ethan asked, flipping through one of the books. I love it. How about you? We do, Michael said. Grandma always reads us stories before bed. That's wonderful. Reading is so important. David watched the interaction with a tight chest. Jennifer was being kind and polite, but he could see she was struggling to keep her emotions in check. How about we go play for a bit, he suggested. There's a playground over there. For the next hour, they played together in the park. Jennifer pushed the boys on the swings, helped them climb the slide, and even joined in an impromptu soccer game. David noticed that as Jennifer relaxed, her interactions with the boys became more natural. She laughed at their jokes, praised their skills, and patiently answered their endless questions. Jennifer, Christopher said during a quiet moment, Dad said you really want to have kids. The question caught Jennifer off guard, and David saw a flicker of pain cross her eyes. It's true, she replied. I've always wanted to have a family. And now you can have us, said Christopher with innocent enthusiasm. Yes, I suppose I can, said Jennifer, but her voice was tense. Will you be our mum? Asked Ethan directly. Jennifer looked at David as if asking for help, and he realized she was struggling with her emotions. It's complicated, she finally said. Being a mother is very important, and I need to be sure I can be a good one for you. But you seem really good with kids, observed Michael. And Dad likes you a lot. And you're also polite and smart, added Christopher. It would be easy to love you. The boy's innocent words touched Jennifer deeply, and David saw tears forming in her eyes. Thank you for saying that, she murmured. Hey everyone, David interjected. How about we go grab a snack? I'm hungry. They went to a diner near the park, where the boys kept asking Jennifer about her life, her work, and her hobbies. She answered everything patiently, but David could see she was emotionally exhausted. Jennifer, Michael asked during a pause, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Why can't you have babies? The innocent question hit Jennifer like a punch. David saw her hands tremble slightly before she answered. Sometimes people's bodies don't work the way they want, she explained gently. It's like when someone needs glasses because they can't see well. My body can't make babies naturally. Does that make you sad? Asked Christopher. Sometimes it does, she admitted. But now you have us, said Ethan. We can be your kids, even if we didn't come from you. That was the last straw. Jennifer couldn't hold back anymore and began to cry. They weren't tears of sadness, but a complex mix of pain, hope, fear, and something that felt like budding love. The boys grew worried, thinking they'd said something wrong. Sorry, said Michael. We didn't mean to make you sad. You didn't make me sad, Jennifer said through tears. You made me moved, in a good way. So they're happy tears? Asked Christopher. They're tears of many things, she replied, wiping her eyes. Joy, fear, hope, all mixed together. We feel like that sometimes too, said Ethan, especially when we think about our mom who's gone. Do you miss her? Jennifer asked, trying to compose herself. We do, said Michael. But Grandma Elizabeth always says Mum is watching over us from heaven. And now we have Dad, added Christopher, and maybe a new mom too. Jennifer looked at David, and he could see something had shifted in her eyes. A genuine connection was forming between her and the boys. You're very special children, she finally said, so mature for your age. Grandma says we've been through things that made us grow up faster, explained Ethan. And do you think I could learn to be a good mum for you? Jennifer asked, her voice hesitant. Of course, Christopher said excitedly. You're already really nice to us. And we can teach you the things we like, offered Michael. Like what? Like our favorite games, the foods we love, the stories Grandma tells, Ethan explained. And you can teach us things too, added Christopher. Dad says you're really smart. Jennifer smiled genuinely for the first time that day. So do you want to try? Do you want to get to know each other better and see if we can become a family? Yes, the three said in unison. David felt overwhelming emotion wash over him. It was the first real step toward uniting his family. The rest of the day passed surprisingly naturally. They walked through the park, played some games Jennifer had brought, and talked about everything under the sun. David noticed Jennifer was genuinely interested in getting to know the boys, asking questions about their dreams, fears, and hopes. When it started getting late, it was time to say goodbye. "Jennifer," Ethan said, "will you come back to see us?" "I will," she replied, and this time David could hear sincerity in her voice. "If you want me to, of course." "We do," the three of them said together. "Then we'll see each other again next week." On the way home, after dropping the boys off with Mrs. Elizabeth, Jennifer stayed quiet for a long time. "What did you think?" David finally asked. "They're amazing," she admitted. "Polite, affectionate, smart. It's impossible not to like them. I knew you'd fall for them. David, I'm still really scared. Scared I won't be the mother they deserve. Scared this might change our lives in a way we can't handle. But are you willing to try?" "I am. For them, for you, and for me too. I've always dreamed of being a mother, and maybe this is the way fate chose to make that dream come true." "I love you," David said, taking her hand. "I love you too, and I think I can learn to love them as well." The following week, Jennifer started visiting the boys regularly, first with David, then alone for a few hours. She helped with homework, played with them, and little by little built an individual relationship with each one. Ethan, always the most straightforward, was the first to fully accept Jennifer. He began asking her for advice about school and boy stuff he wanted to understand. Michael, the most sensitive, took a little longer to open up, but when he did, he formed a deep connection with Jennifer. They discovered they both loved reading and talking about meaningful things. Christopher, the playful one, won Jennifer over with his infectious humor and optimism. He could make her laugh even on the toughest days. Everything seemed to be going well, until on the Friday of the second week, David got an unexpected call from Dr. Richard Wilson. "David, we have a problem. Amanda filed a legal petition questioning your ability to care for the boys." "What do you mean?" "She's claiming you're emotionally unstable, that you've made rash decisions, and that you're not fit to properly raise 3 children. David's blood ran cold. "Can she do that?" "Technically, yes. Anyone can raise concerns about a child's welfare if they believe they're at risk. But the boys aren't at risk. They're being well taken care of. I know that, and you know that. But Amanda is using the fact that you appeared out of nowhere in their lives and started making drastic changes." "What kind of changes?" "She's questioning the school transfer, the home renovations, the excessive spending. She's painting a picture like you're trying to buy the kids' affection. That's ridiculous." "It is ridiculous, but it could be dangerous if we don't respond properly. David, you need to show that your decisions are well considered and in the children's best interest." "How do I do that?" "First, we'll organize all the documentation proving your paternity and your financial and emotional stability. Second, we'll get testimonies from people who can vouch for your character and parenting abilities." "What about Mrs. Elizabeth? Can she testify on my behalf?" "Absolutely. Her testimony would be crucial since she's currently their legal guardian." "What about Jennifer? Could her acceptance of the situation help?" "It could help a lot. It shows you have a stable family structure to offer the children." When David told Jennifer about Amanda's legal action, she was furious. "How dare she?" she exploded. "Those boys are much better off now than they were before you came into their lives." "Jennifer, there's something I need to ask you, and I'll understand if you don't want to do it." "What is it?" "Dr. Wilson said it would be important to have your testimony, confirming we have a stable family structure for the boys." Jennifer didn't hesitate for a second. "Of course I'll testify. Amanda has crossed every line now. But this means publicly acknowledging that you accept the boys as your sons. Are you sure?" "David, these past 2 weeks, those boys have found their way into my heart in ways I never thought possible. If anyone tries to take them away from you, they'll have to go through me first." Jennifer's declaration moved David deeply. She had truly fallen in love with the boys. "And there's one more thing," she continued. "I think we should speed up the formal adoption process." "Formal adoption?" "David, legally you're their biological father, but I want to officially adopt them too. I want them to be our sons in the eyes of the law." Jennifer, are you sure about this? Absolutely certain. They're already our sons in our hearts. Now I want it to be official too. On the day of the court hearing, David was nervous but confident. He, Jennifer, Dr. Richard Wilson, Mrs. Elizabeth, and even the boys were present. Amanda had hired a lawyer who tried to paint David as an irresponsible man who had abandoned 3 children for 12 years and now wanted to play dad without considering the consequences. But David's defense was solid. Dr. Wilson presented all the documents proving biological paternity, David's financial and emotional stability, and the significant improvements in the boys' lives since he had appeared. Mrs. Elizabeth was the most compelling witness. With her 65 years of wisdom and her evident love for her grandsons, she told the judge how the children's lives had changed for the better since David came into the picture. "Your Honor," she said firmly, "I raised these boys alone for 8 years after my daughter passed. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. When David appeared, it was like a prayer had been answered. He isn't just their biological father. He's the father they always deserved." Jennifer also testified, explaining how she had met the boys and decided to build a family with them. "Your Honor," she said, "I may not have given birth to these children, but I swear I love them as if they were my own. My husband isn't trying to buy their affection. He's simply being the father they never had." But the most touching moment came when the judge decided to hear from the boys themselves. Ethan, Michael, and Christopher were called one by one to speak with her privately. When they came out of the judge's chambers, they were all smiling. "What did she ask you?" David wanted to know. "She asked if we wanted to keep living with Grandma Elizabeth or if we wanted to live with you and Jennifer," Ethan explained. "And what did you say?" "That we wanted to keep living with Grandma, but we also wanted you and Jennifer to be our official parents," Michael said. "And that Aunt Amanda is wrong for trying to break up our family," Christopher added. The judge's decision was clear and final. David had every right to exercise fatherhood over the boys, and Amanda had presented no real evidence that they were at risk. More than that, the judge praised how David and Jennifer were handling the situation. "It's rare to see a family come together so harmoniously under such unusual circumstances," she said. "It's clear that all the decisions made by Mr. David were in the best interest of the children." When they left the courtroom, Amanda was visibly defeated. She approached Jennifer with the expression of someone who had realized they'd made a serious mistake. "Jennifer, I was only trying to protect you," she said. "Protect me from what, Amanda?" Jennifer replied coldly. "From having a family? From being happy? From finding purpose in life? I thought you were being emotionally manipulated. The only person who tried to manipulate me was you, and thankfully, I realized it in time. Are you really going to adopt those children?" "I am. And if you try to interfere with our family again, you'll have to deal with me and my lawyer." Amanda walked away, knowing she had lost not just the legal battle, but also her relationship with her sister. 3 months later, Jennifer's adoption process was finalized. Ethan, Michael, and Christopher were now officially the children of both David and Jennifer. The ceremony at the courthouse was emotional. When the judge declared the adoption official, the boys ran to hug Jennifer. "Now you're really our mom," Christopher said. "I always was," Jennifer replied, tears in her eyes. "We just needed to make it official." During that time, they had also started renovations on Mrs. Elizabeth's house. Instead of building a new home, they decided to expand the existing one, creating larger bedrooms, a modern kitchen, and a spacious living room where the whole family could gather. Jennifer had thrown herself into the project, choosing colors, furniture, and decorations with the boys. It was clear she didn't see it just as the children's house, but as their family home. "Mom," Michael said one day, using the word for the first time, "can I give a suggestion for my room?" Jennifer stopped what she was doing and looked at him with shining eyes. "You called me Mom." "It just slipped out," Michael said, turning red. "No, it didn't," Ethan chimed in. "We talked about it. We want to call Jennifer Mom." "If she's okay with it, of course," Christopher added. "If I'm okay with it," Jennifer repeated, moved. "Of course I am. It's all I've ever wanted." From that day on, Jennifer was officially Mom to all 3 boys, and she embraced the role with a naturalness that surprised even herself. She helped with homework every night, attended school meetings, took them to doctor's appointments, and was always there for the important moments in their lives. David watched it all with growing admiration for the woman he'd married. Jennifer hadn't just accepted the boys, she had become the mother they'd always needed. A year after David first saw the boys on the street, they threw a party to celebrate their family anniversary. The renovated house looked beautiful, filled with friends and relatives who had followed their journey. Mrs. Elizabeth, now with her diabetes under control and living comfortably, was the center of attention, telling stories and receiving praise for raising 3 such special boys. During the party, Ethan approached David. "Dad, can I tell you something?" "Of course, son. Thank you for not giving up on us when things got hard." "What do you mean, Ethan?" "When Aunt Amanda tried to break our family apart, we were scared you might give us up so you wouldn't lose Jennifer." The thought never crossed my mind. We know that now, but back then we weren't sure. After all, we hadn't known each other long. "Ethan, listen to me. From the first day I met you on the street, you became the most important thing in my life. Nothing and no one could make me abandon you. And Mom, does she feel the same? Ask her yourself." Ethan went over to Jennifer, who was chatting with some friends, and repeated the question. "Jennifer, Mom, did you ever think about giving up on us?" Jennifer stopped the conversation immediately and knelt down to be at Ethan's eye level. "Ethan, do you all want to know the truth?" "We do. At first I was really scared. Scared I wouldn't be able to love you, scared I wouldn't be a good mom, scared our family wouldn't work out. And now? Now I know you're the best kids a mother could ask for, and I'd do anything to protect our family." Michael and Christopher moved closer to listen. "Mom," said Michael, "do you regret taking us in?" "Regret?" Jennifer repeated, surprised. "Michael, you were the best thing that ever happened to me. Before I met you, I was so sad because I couldn't have children. Now I realize fate was just waiting for the right time to give me the perfect kids." "Even though we didn't come from your belly?" asked Christopher. "Children of the heart are just as much children as those from the womb," Jennifer said, hugging all 3. "And you'll always be in my heart." David watched the scene with indescribable emotion. His family had come together in the most unexpected way, but now he couldn't imagine life without those 3 extraordinary little humans. Mrs. Dorothy, who had become a sort of honorary grandmother to the boys, approached David. "Dr. David, looking at this, I can only think one thing." "What's that, Mrs. Dorothy?" "That God always knows what he's doing, even when we don't understand it at the time." "How so?" "You made those donations 20 years ago because you needed money. Back then, it must have just seemed like a practical solution to a financial problem. But really, you were planting the seeds for the most beautiful family I've ever seen. I'd never thought of it that way. And Mrs. Jennifer, she suffered so much not being able to get pregnant, but if she'd had biological children, maybe she'd never have found these 3 treasures who were waiting for a mother. You're right, sometimes what seems like a tragedy is really a blessing in disguise. And these boys? They lost their mother too young, grew up without knowing their father, went through financial struggles, but all of it prepared them to cherish the family they have now." David looked around the party and saw his family united and happy. Jennifer was playing with the boys in the garden, Mrs. Elizabeth was laughing with some friends, and everyone seemed genuinely joyful. "You know, Mrs. Dorothy, I think you're right. All the pain we went through, all the obstacles, it was all part of a bigger plan. And now, what's next for the Thompson family? Now we're just going to be happy. We'll watch the boys grow, support their dreams, be the family they always deserved." "More kids? Has Mrs. Jennifer talked about expanding the family?" David smiled. "Actually, we've already discussed it. We're thinking of adopting more children in the future. Seems we love being parents so much we want to give that chance to other kids who need a family." "That's beautiful, Dr. David. You've truly found your calling." As the party wound down and the last guests left, the family gathered in the living room to talk about the day. "Best party ever," said Christopher. "Agreed," said Jennifer. "It was perfect." "Dad," Ethan said, "can I ask something?" Of course. If we hadn't gone to ask for money on that street corner that day, do you think we still would have found each other? That's an interesting question, David said. What do you all think? I think yes, said Michael. Somehow we'd have met. Why? Because real families always find each other, no matter how long it takes. I think so too, agreed Christopher. Fate wanted us to be a family. What about you, Mom? Asked Ethan. What do you think? Jennifer thought for a moment before answering. I think you were waiting for us just as much as we were waiting for you. Maybe we didn't realize it at the time, but our hearts knew our family was incomplete. And now it's complete, asked Michael. Now it's perfect, replied David. I couldn't imagine a more perfect family than ours. Even with all the problems we've faced? Asked Christopher. Especially because of the problems we've faced, said Jennifer. They made us fight for our family, and that made it even more special. And Aunt Amanda? Asked Ethan. Do you think she's still mad? Amanda is learning to accept our family, Jennifer said diplomatically. Sometimes people need more time to understand that not all families are formed the same way. But are all families formed with love? Asked Michael. The real ones, yes, replied David. And our family has more than enough love. And will it always? Asked Christopher. It always will, David and Jennifer promised in unison. That night, after the boys had gone to bed, David and Jennifer stayed on the porch, gazing at the stars. What are you thinking about? Jennifer asked. I'm thinking about how funny life is. A year ago, I thought I had everything. Professional success, a happy marriage, financial stability. But in truth, the most important part was missing. The boys. Exactly. I didn't even know they existed, but they were exactly what was missing to complete my life. And I thought I was incomplete because I couldn't have children. But really, the children I was meant to have already existed. They were just waiting for me to find them. Do you regret anything? The only thing I regret is taking so long to fully accept our new reality. If I'd opened my heart sooner, we would have spared ourselves a lot of pain. But maybe we needed to go through that phase. Maybe we had to face the difficulties to appreciate what we have now. Maybe so. What about you? What do you regret? Not telling you about the donations from the start of our relationship. If I'd been transparent from the beginning, I would have avoided that crisis of trust. But maybe if you'd told me sooner, I wouldn't have been ready to accept it. Maybe the timing was exactly right. Do you really believe that? I do. I believe everything happened exactly as it was supposed to. At the right time, in the right way, with the right people. I love you, said David, kissing his wife's forehead. I love you too. And I love our crazy, perfect family. Crazy? David, how many families do you know that formed when a 42-year-old father found 3 12-year-old boys begging on the street? Point taken, David laughed. We're definitely a one-of-a-kind family. And that's why we're special. 2 years later, the Thompson family had settled in completely. Ethan, Michael, and Christopher were thriving at their new school, each developing their own unique talents and interests. Ethan had discovered a gift for math and dreamed of becoming an engineer like his father. Michael had fallen in love with literature and spent hours reading and writing stories. Christopher had a natural talent for sports and was excelling on the school's soccer team. Jennifer had found complete fulfillment as a mother. She was actively involved in the boys' school lives, organized family activities, and had become a fierce advocate for children's rights in their community. David had found a perfect balance between work and family. He still successfully ran his company, but now his priorities were clear. Family always came first. Mrs. Elizabeth, at 67, was healthier and happier than she had been in years. The constant presence of David and Jennifer had lifted the burden of raising 3 grandchildren alone, and she could now simply enjoy her role as a loving grandmother. One Sunday afternoon, as the whole family gathered in the garden of their renovated home, Michael made an observation that would stay in everyone's memory. Dad, Mom, can I say something? Of course, son, Jennifer replied. I was thinking about our story from the beginning until now. And what did you conclude? David asked. That our family is proof that love isn't about blood or time. It's about choice. How so? You could have ignored us when you saw us on the street, Mom Jennifer could have asked for a divorce when she found out about us. Grandma Elizabeth could have been jealous when you showed up. But you all chose to love. Michael's right, Ethan said. We also chose to accept you as parents. It wasn't automatic just because Dad is our biological father. And I chose to accept that I had a new family, Christopher added. At first I was afraid I'd forget our first mom if we loved Mom Jennifer too much. And now? Jennifer asked. Now I know it's possible to love two moms at the same time. One who gave us life and another who taught us how to live. The boys' words deeply moved David and Jennifer. They had grown so much in 2 years, and their reflections showed wisdom beyond their years. You know what impresses me most about you? David said. What? How you managed to stay generous and optimistic even after everything you went through. You lost your mom, grew up with financial struggles, but you never stopped being kind and hopeful children. Grandma Elizabeth always said life would get better, Michael explained, and she was right. And you always believed her? Not always, Ethan admitted. Sometimes I doubted, especially when I saw other happy families and thought we'd never have that. But here we are, Christopher said, with the happiest family in the world. I agree, Jennifer said. We are the happiest family in the world. At that moment, as if the universe wanted to confirm the family's happiness, a light rain began to fall. But instead of running inside, they decided to stay there in the garden, enjoying the summer rain. Remember that first afternoon we spent together in the park? Jennifer asked. I was so nervous I could barely talk to you. And now you're the most natural mom in the world, Michael said. It's not natural, Jennifer corrected. It's learned. Every day I learn something new about being a mom. You're my teachers. And you're the best teachers a dad could have, David added. You taught me that love has no limits, that family has no single definition, and that happiness can come in ways I never imagined. Dad, Ethan said, can I ask one more question? Always. Do you think our biological mom would be happy seeing our family now? David looked at Mrs. Elizabeth, who was smiling through tears. What do you think, Mrs. Elizabeth? Would Sarah be happy? Boys, their grandmother said in an emotional voice. Your mom always said her greatest dream was to see you happy and loved. Looking at you now, I'm sure she's beaming with joy. And would she like Mom Jennifer? Christopher asked. She'd like her very much, Mrs. Elizabeth replied. Sarah always wanted you to have a complete family. Jennifer is exactly the kind of mom she would have chosen for you. How can you be so sure? Michael asked. Because Sarah chose your biological father very wisely, and a man like David could only marry a special woman like Jennifer. The rain stopped, and the sun came out again, creating a perfect rainbow over the family's home. Look, shouted Christopher, pointing to the sky. It's a sign, said Ethan. A sign of what? Asked Jennifer. That our family is blessed by heaven, Michael replied poetically. I think Michael is right, said David. We are a blessed family. They stood there in the garden, gazing at the rainbow and reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this moment of perfect happiness. You know what I'd like to do? Jennifer suddenly said. What? Everyone asked. I'd like to write our story. Everything that's happened from our first meeting until now, so we never forget how our family came to be. And so others can see that families can form in unexpected ways, David added. Can I help write it? Asked Michael, always interested in literature. Of course it'll be a family project. And then we could make a movie, Christopher suggested excitedly. Or a book, said Ethan. Or just keep it for ourselves, Mrs. Elizabeth said wisely. Not every beautiful story needs to be shared with the world. Sometimes it's enough to live it with love. Grandma's right, Jennifer agreed. Our story is ours, and it's perfect, just the way it is. You wouldn't change anything? Michael asked. Nothing, David and Jennifer answered at the same time. Not even the hard times? Especially the hard times, David said. They made us stronger and brought us closer. And made us appreciate what we have now even more, Jennifer added. As the sun began to set, They went inside to prepare dinner. It was Sunday, homemade pizza night made by the whole family. While rolling out the dough and choosing toppings, they talked about their plans for the coming week. David had a work trip, but it was just for a day. Jennifer had an important meeting at the office. The boys had tests at school. They were ordinary conversations for an ordinary family, but to them, they had a special meaning. Every moment together was cherished, every conversation a treasure. "Dad," Ethan said as he stretched the pizza dough, "can I confess something?" "Of course. Sometimes I'm afraid I'll wake up and find out this was all a dream." "Why would you think that?" "Because it's too good to be true. Having a father, a mother, a happy family, and after so many years of dreaming about it." "Ethan," Jennifer said, pausing from slicing tomatoes, "come here." He walked over and she hugged him tightly. "This isn't a dream. It's real, it's ours, and it's forever, understand?" "I understand," he said, more at ease. "And if you ever wake up feeling that fear again," David added, "just come talk to us. We'll always be here to remind you this is real." "I promise," Ethan said. After dinner, as was their Sunday tradition, they gathered in the living room to watch a movie together. It was everyone's favorite time of the week. That night, they chose a comedy that had them all laughing. Mrs. Elizabeth dozed on the couch. The boys argued over who would pick next week's movie, and David and Jennifer exchanged knowing glances over their heads. It was a perfectly ordinary and perfectly extraordinary scene all at once. When it was time for bed, each boy kissed their parents and grandmother goodnight as they did every evening. "Good night, Dad. I love you," Ethan said. "Good night, Mom. I love you," he told Jennifer. "Good night, Grandma. I love you," he said to Mrs. Elizabeth. Michael and Christopher repeated the ritual before heading upstairs. "Good night, our family," Christopher called from the stairs. "Good night, our son," they all replied together. When the boys were asleep, David, Jennifer, and Mrs. Elizabeth stayed in the living room talking about random yet important things. "David," said Mrs. Elizabeth, "can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Are you happy?" "Completely happy. Happier than I ever imagined possible." "And you, Jennifer?" "Same. Before I met the boys, I thought I knew what happiness was, but I had no idea." "And aren't you afraid this happiness might end?" "We are," admitted David. "But we've learned that fear is part of life. The important thing is not to let it stop us from living, and not to let it stop us from loving," Jennifer added. "You know you're an inspiration, don't you?" said Mrs. Elizabeth. "How so?" "To me, to the neighbors, to everyone who knows your story. You show that it's possible to build a beautiful family from unexpected circumstances." "We didn't do anything special," said David. "We just loved." "But love is everything," replied Mrs. Elizabeth. "And you loved when it was hard, when it was complicated, when everyone doubted you. That's very special." That night, when they finally went to bed, David and Jennifer lay in the dark, talking about the day. "What are you thinking about?" Jennifer asked. "I'm thinking our life is a miracle." "How so?" "Just think. If I hadn't donated sperm 20 years ago, the boys would never have been born. If Sarah hadn't specifically chosen my profile, they wouldn't be my sons. If she hadn't passed away, they wouldn't have been available for adoption. If I hadn't turned that corner on that exact day, I'd never have seen them. If you weren't the amazing woman you are, you wouldn't have accepted them as your own." "It's true. How many things had to align perfectly for us to get here?" "They weren't coincidences," said David. "It was fate." "Do you really believe in fate?" "I do now. How else can you explain it?" "Maybe it doesn't need explaining," said Jennifer. "Maybe it's enough to be grateful." "I am. Every day when I wake up and see this is all real, I'm deeply grateful." "Me too." They fell asleep in each other's arms, as they did every night, knowing the next day would bring another ordinary, happy day of family life. And so the Thompson family continued their journey, facing the normal challenges of everyday life, but always united by the love that had found them so unexpectedly and held them together so firmly. 5 years after their first meeting on the corner of Fifth Avenue, they threw a special party to celebrate the 5-year family anniversary. Ethan was now 17 and had been accepted into one of the country's top universities to study engineering. Michael, also 17, had won a national youth short story contest. Christopher, the eternal optimist, had become captain of his school's soccer team. Jennifer had become a family and adoption lawyer, helping other families form just as theirs had. David had expanded his company and created a scholarship program for underprivileged youth, inspired by his own son's stories. Mrs. Elizabeth, now 70, was healthy and active, not only caring for her grandchildren, but also helping other grandmothers in the community facing similar situations. During the party, Michael gave a speech that perfectly captured what this family meant to all of them. 5 years ago, we were just 3 boys who had lost almost everything in life. Today, we're part of a family that has everything, not because we got rich, but because we got loved. And love is the only wealth that really matters. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this story and where you're watching from. Do you believe it's possible to build a family through love, even when circumstances are unexpected? Share your thoughts on this heartwarming journey in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more touching stories that warm the heart.